Good afternoon, everyone. Kia ora. It's so great to be here, and I'm glad to finally be here. I wish I could be with you in person, but the reality of this world is it is what it is. And I know that innovation right now is the big topic. We're talking about raising your innovation IQ today. What's changed? What's missing? What's the future? And I know that it's so critical that we wherever we are, whatever stage we're at, whatever industry or niche we're in, it's a skill we want to master. And I think I want to start with a story just to give you some context of I feel that the direction that we need to go in to change our thinking, to change the way that we approach problem solving in our business. A couple of years ago, I went to dinner with some friends of mine, and their 6-year-old boy, their youngest boy, sort of tugged at my arm over dinner, and he said to me, "Auntie Leena, do you have chocolate skin because you eat a lot of chocolate ice cream?" Completely innocent, the 6-year-old kid that said this. And as an adult, my friends and I, we were a little bit perplexed, a little bit stunned. But as we thought about it, we thought, gosh, this is actually a very intelligent question. This is not somebody who's ignorant. He's got a Chinese, Taiwanese parents, lives in LA, very multicultural city in the US, international friend circle. So it's actually somebody who's in a very intelligent way in their 6-year-old mind, making a connection between two diverse areas, something that he loved, chocolate ice cream, and the color of my skin, and just making that connection. And I think that as adults, we need to do more of this. We need to start connecting dots and making correlations between diverse domains. That's where innovation is. And we need to adopt that 6-year-old mindset in some ways so that we're not fearful of making connections or even asking these kinds of questions so that we gain new insights and new revelations. So I really encourage you to, as we talk about innovation today, to to approach this topic, if it's new to you, if you've been studying this and practicing this for some time, really start to open your perception of this and put on the lens of a 6-year-old and see really what opens up for you. Ernst & Young polled leaders, boards across industries last year, and they said that the number one challenge that we're all going to be facing, they said this before COVID, but it's so relevant today. The number one challenge we're all going to be facing is the challenge between balancing current revenue and also strategizing for challenges beyond the horizon. That balance between what we need right now to keep the lights on, to keep operations running, to keep revenue going, and also just kind of having that crystal ball into what's coming so that we can be prepared for that. And for those of you that have the strategies, the tools, the tactics, you're going to be best positioned to manage this disruption that we're all facing, and we're going to likely continue to face in the next year. So what I want to share with you today are what's changed for you, particularly in the tech space, some changes that you may not be aware of, share some insights with you based on data that I've gathered, interviews that I've done for Raise Your Innovation IQ, based on the work that I've done and the interviews and collaborations that I've had with companies in the last 6 to 9 months, and some of the strategies they're sharing with you, and innovation that we've introduced into the marketplace to give you some ideas of how you can innovate within your teams. And then also share 3 innovation opportunities that will allow you to overall give you the tools, the tactics, the strategies, and the approach to be able to drive innovation. So let's start with what you know. You know that budgets have been shaved. They're in jeopardy for a lot of your teams, for a lot of your organizations. Many of you are very much aware that that 5-year plan that you were operating by has now massively shrunk to the 5-month plan or the 5-week plan for many of you, depending on the niche you're in. I also know that just very recently, Prime Minister signed this trade agreement, which is going to allow you to open up doing business with many countries around the world. So I know that's super, super exciting, a huge step forward, a huge win for New Zealand. That just means that all of this disruption has created a massive amount of opportunity. So simply needing to just being aware of what your blind spots are, what you're missing, I think that's going to give you an edge. So this is what you know. What don't you know? Your role as a leader in tech has changed dramatically in the last 9 months. What do I mean by that? So previously you were marketing, engineering, business development, founder, like whatever that specific role, that title that you had, that you felt described your role within your team, within your organization, within your business, that role has now expanded massively. So you're no longer now just this role. You're not just this trusted advisor in this space, this trusted operator in this space. You're also now a strategic co-creator. What do I mean by that? You're also now responsible for co-creating with your teams, with your leadership teams, with your investors, with your peers, with the marketplace, to share what insights, what opportunities there are for your business growth. Because everyone right now for this year and going forward, we're figuring it out as we go. We're figuring it out as we go along. We don't have all the answers. So that means we're really relying on you to bring that insight, to bring that new knowledge, to share what's changing in the marketplace so that your team, your business, your organization can take advantage of these missed opportunities. So that's one. The other role that you're also playing is this role of change instigator, because the way that everything is shifted in the marketplace now, you also now have the responsibility of bringing your team along, your customers along. All, the way that you were operating your business was, this is it, this is your plan A, and everyone was used to that. And now you're responsible for opening their eyes, saying, hey, actually, because of this change, we're now going to introduce this new technology. We're going to pivot our business model into this new direction. And as we know, so many people are resistant to change when it's we're moving in new directions. We're taking on new roles, new technology that are unfamiliar to us. We resist that change. So your responsibility is now also to engage people, to bring them in and to get them on board with you so that you're moving as efficiently and as effectively in the same direction. Okay, so this is how your role has changed. So it's going to require this very different skill set than perhaps you were used to using, more expanded skill set, let's say. And it means that innovation is no longer this nice to have thing. If we can get it on the budget, it's an absolute priority. It's a must, and you cannot afford to cast it aside, especially now that budgets have been challenged and so on. So what I want to do is share with you 5 innovation activities, some areas to give you some tangible ideas of how and where you can drive innovation within your team or within your organization. So let's start. So here are the activities. Number 1, I want you to look at how you can implement new technologies to develop new products or target new customers. Number 2, how you can implement new technologies to improve your existing products or improve your customer experience. Innovating in how you approach your talent model, your people strategy, how your people relating, connecting, and approaching and thinking about innovation. How are you creating new products or services outside your current core offerings so that your company, your team can enter a new industry? And then finally, forming strategic partnerships. Don't always have to drive that innovation. We want to be able to drive innovation internally, but there are also other companies who might be doing complementary services that are innovative, that are groundbreaking, that you can utilize so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So hopefully that's given you some ideas, and I'm going to dive in now by sharing 3 very specific opportunities where you can drive that innovation, drive those ideas. And they're going to operate on this level on the individual, how you can drive innovation within each individual, within yourself, within your team, and then within an organization at large. So let's dive in. Let's start with individual. And I want to start by asking you this question. For those of you, let's just imagine that we're not in COVID. We're not experiencing these lockdowns and restrictions right now. If you had the opportunity to invite any 3 people that you could invite to dinner this weekend, anyone that you'd like, who would those 3 people be? Make a mental note, write it down if you're able to. We'll come back to that in a minute. So the strategy I want to share with you is this. It's called Polish Your Inner Polymath. I talk about it in my book. And for those of you that are not familiar with the word polymath, poly means many. So polymath is somebody simply who is skilled in a multitude of different disciplines. I like to say they're skilled in at least 3 or more diverse domains, and they found a way to integrate them into a top 1% skill set. Okay, so not just about having the knowledge, but it's about how you integrate them in a very unique way. And what I want to do is, I thought I'd actually share 2 things. One, share my story, my background on this journey, to give you a little bit of context of how I'm innovating and how I've come to innovate. And I'll also just give you a case study, a story of a small company that have just done it very easily and very skillfully in a way that you can copy. So, or emulate, or model, role model, let's say. Okay, so let's, here we go. I'm just gonna talk to you face to face for a moment. So a little bit about my background. I was mentored from the age of 4 by my grandfather. He was a direct disciple of Gandhi from the age of 4. He was a disciple of Gandhi from the age of 16, and he was mentored by him for 16 years. And so a lot of that legacy, a lot of those experiences were part of my upbringing and part of how I was raised. So I was raised to be very socially conscious, very aware of the decisions you make, how you show up in the world, care deeply about changing the world, making it a better place, frankly, care about social responsibility. I became a Buddhist at the age of 16 because the philosophy aligned with me, had this, so taking that sort of responsibility for how I show up in the world. And I was a young women's leader in the international, in this international organization responsible for mentoring and coaching and guiding young women on their personal and professional career journey. In college, I studied psychology because I loved learning how the human mind worked. And I'm pretty sure that I would have gone into, psychotherapy or some kind of thing if I didn't end up doing what I'm doing now. Loved it. But at 16, I decided actually I love the arts more. And so I became a professional dancer. And I was artistic director of my own company. I got to open for Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart, the Eurythmics, for those of you that remember those guys back in the days. So I had this fabulous arts career until I got to work with some fun people. I transitioned, moved to the US, moved to Canada, worked with people like Celine Dion, Cirque du Soleil, trained those guys, amazing, for a number of years, and worked in arts, in entertainment, in film, in media. Loved that creative space. And then there was a little voice that said, I need to do more. I want to make more of a difference. I want to make more of an impact. And so I started connecting with more people in corporate, people in tech, government, finance, banking, fintech, healthcare, all those industries. And, something happened for me. There's part of my brain that said, well, this is corporate. They're not going to be able to relate to my background in working in the NGO and the government space, working with social responsibility, working in the arts and entertainment, and all the craziness and joy and creativity that comes from that world. So I sort of hid who I was for the longest time because I thought that wasn't the right thing to do. And I'll tell you that, and I share all of this with you because I think that the breakthrough for me came when I actually started to embrace all these areas of expertise, these experiences that I had, and I brought them to the table. And I found that I was uniquely positioned now to be able to solve a lot of business challenges, a lot of corporate challenges for companies, because they were so used to seeing the world through this prism of the way their industry, their niche operated. So my challenge to you is to actually start to embrace who you are, all those disciplines, those domains, those areas that are part of who you are, that are part of your background, that maybe you hide, you don't think they're part of your current role, your job description right now. I encourage you to bring them out and start connecting those dots between chocolate ice cream and the color of my skin. Start making those connections between those diverse domains and see where that takes you. I talked to you about So I talked to you about I talked to you about who you were going to invite for dinner, and I want you to just look at your list for a moment and ask yourself, ask yourself, like, who would you ask yourself, are those people on that list people that you know, people that you relate to, people that you connect with? Are they people that think the same way as you do? If not, I encourage you to branch out, to look beyond your, let's say, to look beyond your circle, to start having those conversations, right? To start like thinking differently, to start connecting with people that think very differently to you do, okay? Okay. Let's just screen there for a moment. Okay, so here's the case study I want to share with you. It's a UK-based company, and before I tell you their story or who they are, I'm going to ask you this question. What do you think health and fitness and GPS technology and zombies have in common? Well, this UK company, this little startup, decided they wanted to make health and fitness more exciting, more fun. So what they did was they utilized GPS technology and introduced a theme that was very popular, it's trending at the time around the world, this sort of fascination with zombies. And they created this app that would enable people to reach their fitness goals, whether it was, marathon running or interval training or so on and so forth. And based on their goals, they would have this experience of being chased by zombies. And, they would, the app would monitor depending on, sort of like, hey, the zombies are getting really close by, you've got to run faster. And so they'd be part of this experience, this story of being chased by zombies, of having to escape them, run around corners, hide in certain places. And the whole goal of that was simply to make running fun for people. So all they did was combined three areas that they were interested in: technology, health and fitness, and a current craze. And they created a unique offer, a new product in the marketplace that people could enjoy. So you can do this, nothing terribly complex, finding ways to integrate diverse areas and domains and offering something unique, differentiating yourself in the marketplace. Okay, what are the strategic disruption opportunities here? I want you to look outside your industry. I want you to develop subject matter expertise in 3 or more areas, and I want you to start connecting the dots. All right, here's strategy number 2, and this is the team area. This is how you can innovate more within your teams. And this is really utilizing technology more. And obviously, you guys are used to working remote. I know you do a lot of business internationally already. However, I want to give you some capabilities that I want you to think about as you continue to push the envelope and drive innovation in your remote teams. So 5 key capabilities. One is I want you to give your team a space to capture and develop ideas, different to Slack, different to Asana, different to Teams, whatever your project management tool of choice is, that is very much about getting things done. This is a unique space where people can actually go into imagination mode. Give a space for people to be able to think visually, because there's something that happens when that side of our brain, the creative side of our brain, is fired. When we have a space where it's visual, it's interesting, there's a lot of imagery and pictures, our brain starts to think in that more expanded way. You want to give people a space to communicate in real time, especially if you're operating across time zones. You really don't want to be sending out emails and waiting for people to respond 8 hours later. It's great for very strategic getting things done sort of mode, but not so great when it comes to innovation. You want people to be able to respond, for things to be adapting in real time. You want to be able to track and measure the engagement and the depth and breadth of the impact. You want to know that those innovation ideas that you're working on, you're putting forward, you're initiating, are actually going to drive some revenue. They're going to make the impact. They're going to have the outcome that you plan. So defining what those metrics are and being able to track them is critical, making sure you have that capability. And then obviously you want something that's scalable. As you grow, as your team grows, you can innovate with 5 people getting on a video conference call. But if you have 50 people or 500 people or 5,000 people, maybe you want to crowdsource with your customers, you need to be able to find a way to do that, and it's got to be scalable. So just thinking about those things. And what I wanted to do today is just give you or share with you our tool that we use internally and that we offer to our customers to be able to do just this. So you're not reinventing the wheel. It's called Dreambox, and it's basically our virtual innovation lab. So first and foremost, in this time of where digital and data security is critical, you need to provide a secure workspace where each team member can log in. And we talked about capturing ideas. So here's the interface where people can really, each team leader, each manager, each leader, whatever their mission is, whatever their challenge is, whatever it is that you want to put out there and drive innovation in, you can put that out there and give your team access to this. And here's an opportunity where they can see what you're putting out there, and they can develop those ideas. So you can see right there that the missions there at the top, a couple of people have responded to those, and then you've got under each comment, you've got how might this idea be improved. So that allows you, or that allows your team members to now go ahead and comment on other people's ideas and improve upon them, because we know that within our teams, within our organizations, maybe 10% of the team are going to be the ones that are always coming up with the creative ideas. But what about everybody else? It's not that they're not innovative. It's just that their innovation works in a different way. They don't be as good as coming up with the ideas, but they are good at tweaking somebody else's ideas, improving upon them, making recommendations, implementing. So giving people the space to tap into their talent and support your innovation initiatives that way. You want to give people a space to manage those ideas. So we've got this Kanban style board where you can literally just move ideas between phases as and when they're developed. You can set what those phases are depending on your initiative, move them around, really simple. You want the metrics. You want to give people the metrics. So we have the setup here to be able to know who's contributing, where are they coming from, how many ideas have been submitted, how much time are people spending in this space, how many comments, how much engagement, what's the impact of those ideas in terms of, is your product improving, is your design usability improving, are you generating more sales, is your culture improving, are your customers feeling happier and buying more, what are the metrics? So we'll help you to map those out and then we actually collect all this data, so you now know exactly what you need to be working on and what you need to can, frankly, because it just doesn't have the ROI that you need. And then this is sort of my favorite piece that allows you to scale. So in real time, as people are talking about words, like their keywords, just populate into this bubble, and you can dial in, click in, and get really granular and find what are people talking about in certain areas, how the idea is connecting, so you can start making those connections and you can figure out what's around the corner, what's next, where do you need to be focusing your innovation on, because people are talking about it and you've got that data right there in real time. Okay, so here's the quick win I want to share with you. Regardless of what tool you use to drive innovation, what technology you use to drive innovation within your teams, understand this. No matter how great your idea is, no matter how capable you are, your change initiatives have a high likelihood of failing. The data shows that about 70% of all change initiatives fail. And there's one reason for this, and one reason alone. And here's the quick win I want to share with you with this strategy. Okay, the quick win is this: get people on board. People support what they create. If you're wondering why people aren't moving in the same direction as you're implementing change, as you're moving with new technology, as you're driving new initiatives, the chances are it's because you haven't got them in from the ground up. They haven't had a chance to contribute their ideas, to develop the ideas, to grow the baby with you. And so they're going to resist that change that you're implementing. So find ways to engage people, to enroll people, to capture and develop their ideas so that they are more likely to move with you as you implement. Okay, let's move to the third one. It's organizational. And it's, we're talking about culture here, right? We're talking about the wider energy that is your organization. And I think there's two kinds of culture that exist within an organization. There's the explicit culture, which is the culture that your organization wants to have. And there's the implicit culture. This is the culture that your organization allows to have. And there's always this dichotomy, and there's often a dichotomy between what we want and what we actually allow to happen. Let me tell you more about that. So really the reason for this is within any organization, doesn't matter if you're a team of 10 or a team of 1,000, you'll have these little micro cultures, these little teams that form, and these micro cultures are driven by a cultural or a number of cultural drivers. These drivers are individuals that are moving your culture forward in a particular direction, and it can either be positive, it can support what you want to generate, or it can detract, it can sort of move in a different direction to what you want to create, the culture that you want to create. So I want to share a case study, a story of a company that's local to me. They're actually Las Vegas based, and I think they've just done such an extraordinary job of driving innovation, driving culture, that I think that we can all learn from. So the company is called Zappos. The company is called Zappos, and their mission is to simply live and deliver wow. Like that's it. That's as simple. And their sole goal is to develop amazing customer service. And the way I'll give you a little bit of backstory on these people. Like they started just over 20 years ago. So 1999, they started off as an online shoe retailer. So they were a shoe shop basically, sold shoes. And they didn't have a really successful time of it, frankly. Investors wouldn't touch them. The CEO, Tony Hsieh, at the time had to invest his own money several times to just keep it alive. It just wasn't cash flowing for many years. But the CEO held fast to his belief that customer service was going to be critical to the way they operated. So they really, at some point, and I think it was just about 10 years ago, they started to make the shift towards making culture the foundation. And a couple of their keys to success I want to share with you. Three keys to success. One is they designed and they activated some core values that they live by. They got enrolled everyone in the company, got their input on what these organizational values should be, and then put them into place. And that became the thing that Zappos is known by. That became the foundation of everything that they did. They shifted their business model to this self-managing system called holacracy. So where the power is decentralized, where the CEO is no longer at the top making a decision, where you don't have to go through several layers of management to get something approved. Anyone in the company is free to make an executive decision. So radical business model there. And then the third strategy they used is what they really I call a paid to quit hiring strategy. That when you get people on board, sometimes you make good hiring decisions, but sometimes you're going to get it wrong. So what they do is they bring people in, they give them a sort of a 1 month training so that they can get to know each other. And then after a month, they say, if you like us, if we like you, you're on, you're hired. But if you don't like it, we completely understand. If you don't like us, we completely understand. Like, here's your paycheck. We're going to pay you to quit. Because that way they're ensuring that they don't have the wrong people that are not aligned with their vision within the company. So I wanted to share those tactics with you because I think that culture is such a critical piece of the innovation. And as you're growing and as you're scaling, as you're thinking about expanding, really considering the people that you're hiring and the vision and the alignment with which you're carrying things. And just to sort of wrap it up, actually, I'm going to give you, we talked about individual, team, and organization, the three areas. I want to share a story with you. It's a metaphor of a spider and a starfish. And it's this, that when you pull the legs off of a spider, we all know that spider is going to die. If you pull the limb off a starfish, I wonder if you knew that that limb would now grow into this entity of its own. It would grow 5 new starfish. Why is that? Because starfish have decentralized nervous systems. So let's think about that for a minute. How are you operating within your team? How are you empowering your people so that they're not operating within confined rules? It's not strict, it's not rigid, but it's empowering, it's freeing. They're there to contribute their ideas, to take action on initiatives. As you're thinking about scaling, developing your people, developing your talent, growing your teams. Think about how you can empower your people to and operate this kind of decentralized nervous system, this holacracy, so that you're bringing out the best in your people, you're leveraging your talent, which is critical right now in this age where budgets are being cut and we're operating on a shoestring budget. Really thinking about how you can bring out the best in them and give people reins to drive that innovation. So I hope this has served you. I hope this helps you. I'm going to open up to Q&A right now, and hear what you have to say.
I don't see many queues. Everybody's hungry for lunch, perhaps. So look, I'll kick things off. Hi, Leena. Tell us a bit about some of the themes you're seeing. You talk to a lot of companies about innovation and innovation practice. What are you seeing during this time of COVID? Obviously, your focus is presumably mostly on the US, and people might be rather preoccupied over there at the moment, but what themes are you seeing emerging in innovation conversations these days?
So actually it's not, I don't have a US-centric business at all. I've got, we operate in Asia and Europe as well, and Canada, which is part of North America, but certainly global. So we kind of got our fingers on what's happening around the world. And I'll tell you some common themes that I'm seeing. One is that people are looking to pivot their business model, really looking at the products they're offering, looking at the services they're offering, and just determining, like, is there a market for this right now? Right? If you're in live events, if that's your business model and live events are out, what are you going to do that's different? And looking at really, you almost need to sort of like pull the reins in, take a step back into what your actual product is, and maybe decide that product may now serve a different market. You may decide that there's a different way of offering that product to the marketplace. So really looking at, when I talked about those 5 innovation activities, really looking at the various ways that you might be able to penetrate, whether it's with what you currently have, whether it's offering it in a new way, or maybe it's really just time to tap into a new market space because there's an opportunity that has emerged out of all the disruption that has happened this year. Okay, so I've seen a lot of founders, a lot of leaders really looking at that question of, if we're going to grow revenue, how is what we're offering serving our audience, our customers, and if not, what do we need to do to change that? So that's number one. The second shift that I've seen, I think it's a growing awareness that we need to connect and relate with people very differently now, given this environment that we're in. We're all working remote, and I know that you're all used to working remote. But COVID has changed the way that we relate to each other on a business level. And for a lot of companies, that means that, business as usual meant getting on a call, having a meeting, and getting straight to the agenda. That's no longer the case now. We know that people today are struggling with how to adapt, and again, you could be used to this, but there are other changes that you're experiencing. You may not be able to have coffee, you may not be able to jump on a plane, you may not be having those water cooler conversations that you had pre-COVID. So everyone, whether it's you in New Zealand or the customers that you're connecting with, in a different country on the other side of the world, their reality has changed. And we need to be cognizant of that, and we need to shift how we relate to people to make space for that. So that means we need to just spend more time just checking in with our teams, checking in with our people to see how they're adapting, how are they relating, what's going on in their lives, what's going on in their family, how are they adapting to working from home while schooling their kids, for example. How are they adapting because they don't have the same face-to-face connection that they've been used to having in their space, in their industry. If we don't take the time to make those connections, and to really deepen our care, the level of care that we show people, they're going to check out. They're not going to give us our best. They're certainly not going to be innovating for us. So just really taking that time, I'm seeing a lot of companies take that time really consciously, where before they had, you know, no agenda, no plan for really looking at how their people were operating this world, to really be more conscientious about creating these psychologically safe environments where people can share what's going on for them, share what's alive in them, so that this clear, open, transparent communication can start to emerge, and it can now start to pave the way for innovation and for those kinds of conversations to drive innovation forward.
Thanks, Leena. There's a few other questions along similar lines, I feel. I'm going to pick one from Chloe Piper. How does a company balance the desire to empower staff and contribute in innovative ways with what's best for the company? Sometimes there's often a tension between these two things, the desire to innovate and the desire to stick with business as usual. How does a company get the best of both worlds?
It seems like they're opposite, but I don't think they are. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I think that there's if that's happening, there's a communication disconnect. As a leader, as a company, you know, as a founder, your role is to paint the vision for the direction that your company needs to move in, and get people on board with that vision, right? So obviously we talked about during the keynote that one of the easiest ways to do that is get them involved and contributing their ideas right from the beginning. But if you've already started that process, like if you've already just dove in, you've created the strategy, and now you've just given it to people, and there's this disconnect that you're experiencing, that you want to just take a step back, and one is take a moment to really explain. I find that sometimes people don't spend enough time explaining the change, the new direction, the new decisions, the new choices that are being made, and why they are being made. There's so much about, like, we need to execute, we need to move quickly, and get lost in the execution without taking a moment to understand there's a lot of people who are just, you know, sitting behind their desks and they don't know what's going on. So if you don't communicate, if they don't know why you're doing certain things, if they don't feel they're part of the conversation, they are going to check out. And that's where you start to sort of see that separation. So that needs to happen. And then the other side of it is you need to be constantly checking in with your team members. And this has to happen really from right from the leadership team. It has to, whoever your direct reports are, every single person has to take that responsibility. Like, forget those quarterly performance reviews, those annual performance reviews. I don't think it's relevant, frankly, anymore. We need to be having those conversations on a weekly basis, just constantly checking with people. And if people are going in different directions, there's a sign for you that something is not right. They're missing information. They don't understand what's going on with the company. They don't feel a part of it. There's something going on in their personal life that is stopping them from bringing themselves fully into the workplace. So you need to, as a leader, you need to have your finger on the pulse, like really stay connected to your immediate team members, and then also do that job of conveying and communicating that new vision, that new direction that you're moving in as a company, so that everyone is on board with you. You need to get that alignment. Hope I answered your question.
I think so. Here's another one for you.
Ask one and I'll elaborate.
Here's another one for you from Sasha McGregor. I'll do my own spin on it, but over the course of this year, have you seen a shift in people and companies' interest in change and a willingness to embrace it, or are they sticking with the old ways? In other words, has COVID inspired people and companies to embrace change and innovation, or to run away from it?
I've seen both. In truth, I've seen both. I would say I've seen a huge shift towards a lot of companies and a lot of industries that before were very change resistant, very risk averse, who are now just forced, and government, utilities, like a lot of companies that are not traditionally innovation focused, let's say, are now just looking at the current reality going, we have to do this. We cannot serve our customers without innovating our products or our process. We have to stay relevant. So I'd say the majority that have, that were now that were previously thinking about innovation as this nice to have, in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, we'll think about innovating when we've got a bit more money in the bank. They've been forced to, because frankly, otherwise operations haven't stayed, won't be able to stay running. I have seen on the flip side, companies that have, and individuals and leaders who are hiding under their desks and hoping and praying that a vaccine will be found and they can just wait and ride out the storm and hope that we can go back to business as usual. And I've seen those people struggle. I've seen those companies struggle massively in the last 6 months, in terms of how quickly they're moving. The marketplace is moving so quickly now that even if you don't know what's going on, even if you don't have the business plan, the strategy all mapped out, you have to move. You cannot be complacent. You cannot be waiting. And I see those companies that are waiting are already behind, because so many innovations that have come to the marketplace in the last 6 to 9 months as a result of the changes we're experiencing globally. So I've seen both, and I just caution you to not get complacent, not sort of preserve the status quo, preserve the familiar, stay with what's comfortable, but really keep your eyes and ears open for what's changing, what's developing, where are the gaps, where are the opportunities, and take action, even if you don't have all the answers, even if it's messy, even if it's not perfectly thought out. You can adapt and you can tweak, but don't wait. Don't be one of those companies that are waiting.